Welcome back to another Djinn diary. The Halloween series did not do well, and so I will be switching it up a little. But for the most part, I want to say thank you to everyone who gave this channel a chance. Please leave a comment on what you like or dislike. Or comment on how this channel can improve. With that said, in this next series, I'll be crafting stories centered around different phobias, the kinds of fears that truly get under your skin and make your heart race. Share these stories with someone you know who loves a good scare, or someone you think could use one. Without further ado. Story 1. Shut the front door. As the kids gathered at the bus stop, a little girl suddenly let out a sharp scream. One boy rushed over, ready to defend her, but when he looked, he saw only a tiny bug. He laughed, lifted his foot, and stomped on it. The bug's body burst, leaving a smear of black on the pavement. The kid shrugged it off and climbed onto the bus, chattering and laughing. A moment later, 2 more tiny bugs emerged, creeping up to inspect the remains of their crushed companion before running back to wherever they came from. The bus rolled through town, coming to a stop at a red light in the middle of the usually bustling town square. The driver glanced around and felt his stomach twist. The square was eerily empty. It wasn't rush hour, but there was always at least some movement here, a shopper, a pedestrian, maybe a car pulling up. But now, it was completely still. The stores were open, but no employees, no customers, not a single soul on the sidewalks or crossing the streets. A chill crept down the driver's spine. He tried to shake it off, searching for a logical explanation. Maybe it was a power outage, or some town event he didn't know about. But everyone couldn't just vanish. Lost in thought, he didn't notice the light turn green until he felt a small hand on his shoulder. A little girl had left her seat and stood there, looking up at him with wide eyes.
Mr. Bus Driver, sir. The light changed.
It startled him, smiled down at the little girl and began to drive. He kept looking around. No bikers, no moms pushing strollers, no dogs in yard. Just empty. He started to feel panicked, sweat started to roll down his face, but he tried to remain calm for the kids' sake.
Excuse me?
A little boy stood near him, 2 other kids stood next to him. Hi there, kiddo, what's going on? I asked.
Are we going to the party?
He looked at little boy confused. What party?
Where all the people went. No one is outside, so they must all be at a party. Is that where we are going?
The bus driver swallowed. He didn't have a clue what to say or what to do. He was hoping the kids wouldn't have noticed, but he should have known better. He's been a bus driver for over 20 years, kids notice everything. The bus slowed down and stopped. He didn't know if he should open the door or not. The kids who normally get off were all standing by the door. He kept looking around, and thought. I can't let them off. Where are their parents? Maybe I should go back to the school? Just then he saw someone run out of the house 2 doors down. Breathing a sigh of relief, he reached for the lever to open the door.
Let me in! Open the damn door!
The man pounded on the bus door, wild-eyed and desperate. The bus driver froze, unable to process the horror in front of him, while the screams of children filled the bus, fading to a distant, muffled echo in his ears. The man outside was covered in strange, black, fuzzy creatures, writhing as they crawled into his mouth, out of his nose, eyes, and ears. In a frenzy, he clawed at his own skin, tearing it open until blood splattered across the bus door. The children shrieked louder as he banged his hands against the door one last time before collapsing onto the pavement, writhing, then finally going still. The bus driver swallowed hard, but his throat remained dry, his heart pounding. Minutes passed. The kids fell silent. The whole bus sat frozen, waiting, every breath held in eerie, tense stillness. Okay, kids, remain calm, I said.
I want my mommy. Can we go home? What's going on?
The bus driver remained quiet. He didn't have answers for them, as thoughts raced through his head. What were those things? Did they attack everyone? Can they get in? What should I do? His train of thought was broken by a little girl's scream from the back of the bus. He rushed over in a panic, only to see a little spider on the floor by her seat. Quickly stepping on it. The little spider was now just a smashed little pile of mush on the bus floor. A deep chill went through the bus driver's body. Spiders, he whispered to himself. But the little girl overheard.
I'm scared of spiders.
He rushed over to the front of the bus and saw the man, dead on the ground. Just laying there, no more black things. Where did it go? He thought to himself. Shut the front door. He turned around quickly, shocking the kids. Closed up the bus. Shut the windows. Plug up any holes. Hurry. The kids shut the window and some used their jackets to plug up a couple holes. After a couple of minutes of panic, the bus became dead quiet. Another little girl screamed, pointing at a tiny crack in the emergency door. It was barely visible, but then, a small spider slipped through. And then another. And another. Within seconds, spiders were flooding into the bus, pouring in as though from an endless stream. The kids screamed and bolted toward the front, frantic to escape. In the chaos, a little boy tripped, his small body nearly trampled under panicked feet. The driver reached down, grabbing the boy's arm and yanking him up. He pushed the children behind him, his own eyes wide and filling with tears. The spiders poured in, thick as a creeping black liquid. They crawled over the floors, up the walls, across the ceiling, even covering the windows, blocking out the sunlight. The bus grew darker, the air thick with the scuttling sounds of thousands of tiny legs. The spiders were closing in, inch by inch. A jolt of horror gripped the driver. They needed to get out. He turned to look at the door, but his stomach dropped. The glass was completely black, swarming with a solid layer of spiders, as if they'd instinctively sealed every way out. He started stomping, crushing dozens of spiders underfoot, but it didn't make a difference. They crawled up the driver's legs and waist, and he felt thousands of bites at once, tiny pinpricks of burning pain. When people say, "I feel like there are bugs crawling all over me," it couldn't begin to describe the actual horror he was feeling. He looked over and saw the kids being covered in spiders. Some were swatting at them desperately, while others were frozen in terror. A small girl dropped to the floor, lifeless, and then another, and another. The bus driver was paralyzed with helplessness as the spiders swarmed him, creeping up to his neck. He clenched his mouth shut, terrified that opening it to scream would let them crawl in, just like he'd seen happen to that man outside. But then he felt one squirm into his nose, the tickling, itchy sensation of it burrowing deeper, like a hair you can't remove. Another spider wriggled in and crawled down his throat. He coughed, spitting the tiny creature out, but the motion opened his mouth just enough for a dozen more to pour in. He gagged, trying to cough out the spiders, but with each breath, more crawled inside. Soon, he couldn't breathe. He stumbled to a nearby seat, vision darkening, black spots flooding his sight as he slumped down. A quick thought shot through his head. Is this how it feels when I step on spiders? When I smack or crush them? Is this how they feel when I'd thrown them into the sink or hosed them off outside? One or two are so harmless, but thousands will kill me. So should I have killed them? Story 2. Arachnophobia. It started off like any other day when I got up to go to work. I took a quick shower, got dressed, and brushed my teeth. As usual, my adorable little tabby cat, Marley, sat on the sink counter the whole time. After I made a quick breakfast of jelly toast, I headed to the door. Like routine, my hand was just about to grip the doorknob so I could exit the house when I happened to look down at it. Right there on the doorknob was the biggest spider I'd ever seen in my life. It had to be bigger than a quarter, and it was all black and hairy. Now, being the manly 24-year-old I am, I screamed at the top of my lungs and jumped back. This startled Marley, but I didn't have time to worry about that. My hand had almost grabbed this monster on the door. Not wanting to be late for work again, I grabbed the nearest object around to kill the thing. After rolling up the National Geographic magazine on my side table, I gave that spider a good swat. It landed on the floor, to which I promptly stomped on it. Thankfully, my floor is hardwood, so there weren't any spider guts embedded in my carpet. Anyway, the remains were soon disposed of with a paper towel and trash can. And soon my workday began, being as boring and tedious as ever. What I did when I finally came home isn't all that important, but the terrifying stuff happened after I went to bed. I ended up waking up at around 3:50 in the morning, which is pretty odd considering I'm typically a heavy sleeper and never wake up in the middle of the night unless it's an emergency. Even Marley never wakes me up. The room was dark, with the only light being from the moonlight which seeped through the cracks in my blinds. Thinking that Marley may have wanted something, I glanced around for him but didn't see him anywhere. He usually sleeps on my bed with me, but I couldn't even find him in the room. Okay, so maybe it was my body telling my brain I had to go to the bathroom? Figuring that was the case, the blankets got tossed to the side, and my legs swung over the side of the bed. But that's when a primal instinct kicked in and told me not to get up, not to move anymore. My hair stood on end, and a sinking dread filled my stomach. Slowly, I scanned the room with my eyes now that they were a bit more adjusted to the low light. And I noticed a tall, black figure standing in the far corner of my room with some white near the top. It was hunched over but still reaching the ceiling. I swear my heart stopped beating when I saw that thing. All I could hear was blood roaring in my ears as I watched the figure step closer to me. I tried to run, but my muscles refused to move no matter how much I willed them to. The thing was standing over me in seconds. Then, ice-cold, impossibly long fingers wrapped around my throat. I tried to struggle, but more hands held down my arms and legs, with one more coming up to shush me. This thing that was inside my bedroom had a death grip on me with 6 arms. I tried to struggle, but it was no use. Soon, I felt myself be lifted up and then pressed against the wall forcefully. I started to cry while simultaneously gasping for breath that didn't come. The thing, still standing over me, tilted its white head to the side. Its head looked like it was covered in bandages, with blood soaking through to make that red mark on black widow spiders. The world started to get darker as it used the hand it shushed me with to pull a paper towel from behind it. The same one I'd cleaned the spider up with that morning. It shoved the spider entrails in my face as if to show me my mistake. The worst thing happened next, if all of this wasn't already bad enough. It loosened its grip on my throat so I could breathe. It then threw the paper towel on the floor and reached up to its face and lifted a bandage. Dozens of tiny, black spiders started pouring out, and the rancid scent of rotting flesh assaulted my nose. My body instinctively started to cough and gag, but it also wanted to scream. Those spiders crawled down the thing's long arms and onto me. Their little legs ran all across my body, my arms, legs, chest, and face. It wasn't long before they started to bite, sending small sting pains all over while this tall creature held me down and chuckled darkly. The next thing I knew, it was morning, and I was lying in my bed. The alarm clock had woken me up, and Marley was sleeping on my bed like usual. I would have chalked that horrifying event to being only a morbid nightmare if it weren't for the hundreds of tiny, red, itching dots all over my body. I don't want anyone else to go through what I did. I can barely sleep at night anymore, and anytime Marley isn't with me at night I'll start to have a panic attack. Listen, I think that thing was trying to tell me something. I think it was angry that I killed that spider on the doorknob. Guys, whatever you do, don't kill any spiders you find in your house, especially if you can just put them outside. I think that thing was merciful when it came to me, but I'm not so sure if it will be that way to anyone else. Just please, be careful. Story 3. Daddy's Spider. When my son screamed for his dad, I rushed up the stairs and flung open his bedroom door. I saw him standing on the bed, pointing to the black darting creatures on the floor.
Daddy, the spiders! Get them!
There must have been around 30 of the black arachnids scuttling over the laundry strewn over the floor. I hated spiders at the best of times, but this many? My wife, Sophie, always made fun of my phobia. I grit my teeth and started stomping. I sat next to my son on the bed for a full hour after the last one was squished. I think I got them all, I said, getting up. I'll just go get something to clean this up. As I reached the door, my son spoke.
Hey, Dad. Thanks.
He said, jumping down and running over to me to give me a hug. No problem, son, I said as my heart began to race. He left my embrace and turned towards the bed. With a span that stretched from his left shoulder, to his right hip and to his left. The 8 long and hairy legs of a giant spider clung onto my son's shirt. Its swollen abdomen a traveling nest for the hundreds of spiderlings that hung onto its mother. Its 8 dark portal eyes stared back at me. Where I was looking at it, I froze. Sophie, I shouted out the door, there's a spider problem I need you to take care of.